And I would say just running backs in general, they're so much more valuable. Like, particularly this year, we're seeing on running backs for use. I want my bench to just be loaded with running backs that have upside if an injury happens or whatever. So I would just target as many running backs as you can. Because if you get the injury lottery, like you get Mason or you get Charbonnet, like that's a guy that's a difference maker for you in the lineup. So yeah, I want all the running backs potentially.
All right, moving on to the wide receivers. Again, different tier options here. Deep leagues, under 25% owned. Jalen Naylor of the Vikings looks pretty solid. The guy who I've been ridiculed for all fucking offseason is coming through. Let me take my Quentin Johnston victory lap. I get it. I watched this one specifically the other day because I said, this is just three of them. They're each getting equal targets. Whoever scores is the guy. I watched the last two games for the Chargers. It's not necessarily the case. They're designing touches for Quentin Johnston. They're designing funny ways to get him involved in the offense, and he's starting to look like he learned how to use his size and speed to his advantage, and is starting to look like the player I thought. Having said that, you shouldn't have to drop more than 5% to get him. Jalen Naylor, you might have to you can get a $1 bid. Some other options before we break all these down. Sorry, I got on a Quentin Johnston rant because I do that. So deeper leagues, we had Naylor, Johnston, Alec Pierce, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Polk, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson. Medium leagues, we've got the not nearly as sexy names: Gabe Davis, Jerry Jeudy, Khalil Shakir, Romeo Dobbs, Jacoby Myers. The shallow leagues, these are the ones these are mostly league specific. If you're in a league with sharp guys who know what they're talking about, almost none of these guys are available. It's amazing in my home leagues how many leagues nobody's even heard of. Rashid Shaheed, JSN is owned in a bunch of leagues. JMO is not owned in many leagues unless it's my Detroit Homer leagues here, and Lad McConkey as well. So there are some great options there. If the Shaheed, JSN, JMO, if those three are rostered, you are not rostered, you have to go get them immediately. There are some good options here. Sleeper also adds in Juwan Jennings, who I'm not really interested in, Darnell Mooney, Jordan Whittington, I don't really want, Josh Reynolds, Andre Yoshivas. So for the most part, I prefer the guys in our piece here. So there's some really good options if you're in a shallow league. Shaheed, JSN, JMO. I don't really like the medium level, but some of the deep league guys here: Jalen Naylor, QJ, Jalen Tolbert had a really nice catch. And then you have Pearson Wan'Dale. Wan'Dale, the targets fell off this week. Pierce is interesting, but with Josh Downs returning, he scares me. I don't know. Who really stood out to you here?
Yeah, I think if you're deciding between a wide receiver in the Chargers offense and a wide receiver in the Vikings offense, you should target the Vikings wide receiver because there's just significantly more upside in that offense, unless the Chargers wide receiver is a dominant target earner. Like if he turns into a 30% target share guy, then hell yeah, give me that guy. But I think to your point on the Chargers, like they're very much floor plays because they're going to distribute it around. No one's really running all the routes or all the snaps. It's like mixing and matching. I think Lad McConkey has the most upside of those guys, but he's heavily rostered and it's highly unlikely you can get him, right? So, yeah, you could throw a dart on QJ. He's probably a lot cheaper because people have that stank all over him still, so he's not going to cost you much. In the meantime, with the injuries to Addison and Jefferson, I think Jefferson's going to be okay. But we saw when Naylor was on the field, he could produce, and this is what I'm talking about with KOC in that scheme. So, yeah, I'm fine throwing darts on Naylor if you need, like, short-term production. He could do it for you. Like, we saw it. I'm fine with him rostering him and throwing him a few bucks because very few people know much about him. It's similar to kind of like Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, where we did this the week before, where it was like, all right, a lot of people know a lot about these guys, but it's the Rams passing attack. The difference is the Rams offense has gone to crap. Like it's not really an offense I want to target at this point because the offense is so bad and there's just so many injuries where they don't have any truly elite alphas in that team. So if Jefferson's healthy, I still think Naylor's fine because Jefferson takes such coverage away. Like he's the focal point of that offense. Naylor could still be a valuable guy for you. So until Addison comes back and Jefferson comes back, like you can probably start Naylor.
Yeah, the coaching staff has said that they're kind of using him. It's not even Jefferson or Addison that worries me. They said they're using him in the TJ Hawkinson role. So that scares me when Hawkinson comes back. And truthfully, I think he's a 1% budget guy. He has potential, but I don't think anyone knows him. So even if you're really high on him, don't put more than a few bucks. Like the only reason I know him is because he went to college at Michigan State, and I fucking hate Michigan State. It's the only reason I had any idea who he was. I hate Michigan State. Like I said,
Tolbert's
I
not
think
bad
for
either.
me,
Yeah, I don't mind
yeah,
Tolbert.
Tolbert. I don't mind Tolbert there as a second option, especially with the tight end being Ferguson being injured. Quentin Johnson, like I said, is the guy for me, especially in Dynasty. I just think he had all the tools coming out of college. I get he was raw. He was a terrible catcher. You know, he was a body catcher. He did all these bad things, but I just feel like he's one of those guys where there's enough talent that if they could just coach the shit part of his game out, he could really be well-rounded. And the Chargers are in desperate need of that because I think as good as Ladd McConkey is, I think Ladd McConkey is a slot receiver. I don't think he's a big body, deep threat outside receiver. And QJ has the potential to be that. And I always prefer, I know it's been weird the way for fantasy football, you know, you've had the Cooper Kupps and the slot guys become ultra productive. But in the end, I still want the big slot or the big outside guys. He's going to have boom and bust weeks because that's the nature of the big alpha receiver. But I'm all in on Quentin Johnston. I have been. I know everyone gives me a hard time. Wan'Dale Robinson, I liked a whole lot more before this week. He went from 12 targets to 4, and they just funneled all those extra targets to Malik Neighbors. So that one kind of worries me. You know, that could also be just because they face the Commanders, and the Commanders suck ass. Is there anyone here that we didn't really discuss that you think is worth mentioning?
I mean, if Drake May does take over the job, I'll have interest in like Jalen Polk, like his skill set matches up. He's not producing right now. Like no one's really going to produce with a percent. It kind of is what it is. The Seahawks were terrible against tight ends last week, so the Hunter Henry stuff is just a mirage. Like I wouldn't count on that either. So if you want to stash Jalen Polk in really deep leagues and whenever Drake May comes in, I think there's upside for him in that offense because they're going to pass more. Like Drake May just opens up the offense to a whole nother level. But overall, yeah, like if you can't get Quentin Johnston, you could do Tolbert, you could do and Naylor, I think would be the two other guys in really deep leagues. The medium league guys, like I think Shakir is probably the one I would target out of that group just because it's it's Josh Allen, it's the Bills offense. Like it's that simple. We want who's ever going to be the wide receiver one on that offense. We don't know how it's going to go, but Shakir's getting way more work than I'm blanking on his name. The other guy,
Coleman.
Well, no,
Cam
the other slot guy. What is his name? Oh my gosh.
Who was there? Curtis Samuel's hurt.
Yes,
Who was there?
Curtis Samuel. Thank you. I was
isn't Samuel hurt?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Samuel, but like it's opening it up for him. So I think Shakir, who's been good on like yards per route run basis on targets and stuff like that, like there's upside for him in that offense. I don't want a Broncos wide receiver. Like I'm just not doing it. So like any Broncos wide receiver, just gonna pass on. Judy's fine in Cleveland, but I don't really want the Jerry Judy experience. He's just a worse version of like what David Njoku
did. You update? I realized you just caught my typo that I caught when I read
saw
it.
That, yeah,
I instinctively put Broncos, and I said that's not
Broncos. We're not.
I was
not doing
Broncos. Thinking here of Judy if they make a QB change away from Nix to Stidham, like I hear they're going to do, and then I look at him like, wait, he's not on the Broncos. I had to change it, but you have to refresh your waiver article here for it to come up. It says Browns now, but I caught it.
Yeah.
Okay, so assuming you're in a league where Shaheed, JSN, JMO, and McConkey are not available, who is your top wide receiver option out of all these guys? Well, it could be anyone. It could be off the board. And how much of your 100% budget are you willing to spend?
So are the middle guys available, like the Shakirs of the world and stuff like that? Or are we just talking about deep leagues?
Not anyone. Your wide receiver. Who's your top ad at wide receiver in all your leagues this week?
Of the if you need production, I'm gonna take Shakir. Then you could do the Rams experience with Demarcus Robinson and those guys. It's super low this week, so like it's gonna be rough. I would rather do Jalen Naylor, so I would go Shakir than like Jalen Naylor, and then the Rams guys, and like Tolbert and kind of that range. If you need production, I can go like 15% on Shakir. I don't really think you need to. Like I don't think he's a hot name, so I think 15% could get you him pretty easily. And you could kind of get that like flex level production and just live with it. If you want the upside shot in the intermediate time, sure, take a shot on Naylor or take a shot on Tolbert. Go with those offenses that have good quarterbacks and see how it works out. That'd be fun. Who's your top guy in like deeper leagues? Is it Naylor?
No, depends on what I need. If I need more immediate production, it's Naylor. If I have a little bit more patience and I want to play for upside, it's Quentin Johnston. Like I said, though, it depends on what I need. If I could add Naylor for the next month and then have Quentin Johnston for after that, I think it'd be a perfect swap out because I think Johnston's still on his way up. But
yeah,